In this final module, I suggest a way that science journalists should cover public scientific controversies. As a journalist, you usually cover individual events, a news conference, a statement from someone, or an accident happening. When there is a connection with vaccines, hopefully this course will help you see the bigger picture, which is a vaccine controversy that has been unfolding for many years. In the end, I propose that you write a story based on 3 principles. The first is that you should reframe the controversy within a scientific frame. The second is that you should take some time to identify the nature of the controversy. And finally, when you produce the story, you should produce it by weighing the experts, giving more importance to where there are more expertise supporting a point of view. First lesson: reframe the controversy within expertise. Usually an event is framed in a particular way. Initiators of a news conference will describe reality using their own interpretation package of beliefs and a set of organizing ideas that will give a special meaning to an issue. With Robert Kennedy Jr., vaccines are poisoning children because of a conspiracy associating big pharma with corrupt politicians and lax regulation enforcers. You could oppose a celebrity against another celebrity, or a religious leader against another religious leader, or a politician to another politician. This makes exciting fights and stories, but it will still leave the audience confused. Science journalists reframe everything within science. They will look for scientific entry points, that is, statements from these celebrities, politicians, or religious leaders that can be fact-checked. All journalists report events using journalistic criteria. They describe events highlighting some aspects and neglecting others. They also describe reality within a specific frame. We call this media framing. It is inevitable. Therefore, a science journalist resolves this by simply reframing events within expertise and within science. Even if you are in a rush, I would invite you to make a pause, take a step away from immediate claims made or the events unfolding, and try to look at what's happening from a certain distance. Does this statement or event belong to a similar series that fit a pattern? As much as possible, try to estimate how much the controversy involves relevant experts against celebrities, cultopreneurs, that is, providers of unproven treatments, and anti-vaccine activists. It helps to put declarations and events into perspective when it becomes clear that the controversy mainly involves characters at the margin or outside of science, characters who are more focused on influencing the public than engaging scientists to advance knowledge. It is very useful to become aware that some so-called scientific controversies, and particularly the vaccine controversies, live mainly outside and independently of science. Here I propose 5 nuances of public scientific controversies. I would start with a controversy that is mainly scientific. It is a debate among scientists. For example, Einstein opposing quantum mechanics. And then there is the public scientific controversy where the debate is happening as much within the scientific community as it is happening in the public sphere. It could be around nuclear energy, for example. And then there is the mainly public scientific controversy, where the debate is mostly outside of the scientific community. GMO's safety is a good example. The scientific community don't doesn't think that the GMOs can hurt people, but it's not the same belief in the public. There are two other kinds of controversies, of scientific controversies, very different from one another. There are the fabricated scientific controversies. This is where fraudulent scientists working outside of mainstream science fabricate papers. Dr. Andrew Wakefield is a case in point because he produced his paper linking autism and vaccines for a tort lawyer that was representing families suing pharmaceutical companies. And then there is the controversy where the debate is totally outside of science, like creationism. It's probably something that we would call a science alien controversy. It is important to be aware that controversies evolve and can have a history. Purely scientific controversies are part of science. Einstein's arguments against quantum mechanics led to experiments that opened the door to quantum teleportation and computing. Most scientific controversies are eventually resolved and remain largely unnoticed by the public. But public scientific controversies, fabricated scientific controversies, and alien to science controversies can be the bread and butter of journalism and science journalism. They can live on and they sell copy. But some controversies can have a very short life. An example of a very short-lived controversy was the headline from France's most prestigious newspaper, Le Monde. It announced that even though everybody were covering this launch of a satellite around the Earth called Sputnik, that was something impossible. Needless to say that controversy didn't last very long. On the other hand, the controversy around GMOs is rather solved within the community of science journalists, but their other colleagues, journalists, still keep the controversy alive. It is worthwhile for a journalist to keep abreast with evolving scientific status of a controversy. But as much as the vaccine controversy might find answers in science, all indicators are that it will remain in the news for a very long time. In the end, a science journalist has to produce a story, and this is probably the single most important slide. Please use the concept of weighing experts initially developed by Sharon Dunwoody. At the origin, she called her approach weight of evidence. This means that the story is structured in such a way that it gives more importance to the side of the controversy that enjoys the greatest scientific evidence or support from the largest number of experts. You know about balance in journalism, but science journalists cannot simply walk away from strong scientific consensus when it exists, like on vaccines or climate change. Putting on equal footing a mainstream and a rogue scientist can produce a traditional balanced story where the journalist would be proud of being neutral. But this is not professional science journalism. Responsible science journalists must share the burden of the weight of evidence with their audiences. And since it would be presumptuous for journalists to assess the science and the scientific evidence directly, science journalists observe how experts distribute themselves along the opposite sides of a controversy. Throughout your career as a science journalist, you will interact with a lot of scientists and experts. And very often, without thinking about it, you will be continuously evaluating them according to their credibility. Over time, you will build a stable of experts that you can trust, and this is why you will become an expert in experts. I hope that this course was a bit useful to you. I invite you to look at the annexes, the bibliography, the resources listed there, and even the suggestions for articles. And I wish you the best as science journalists. It is the best profession in the world.